About the deficit, where are we going to get the money? There's plenty of money. It's just locked up. The banks of America have, listen to this, $1.8 trillion in cash uncommitted to loans. At conservative estimates, they could make $18 trillion in loans tomorrow, and the worldwide recession would be over in 3 minutes. Now, there's not $18 trillion in good loan demand out there, but there's a lot more than is being financed. We got to figure out what would it take to make these banks feel good about loaning again. Then there's $1.6 trillion in corporations' treasuries today. And I know a lot of people are upset about moving jobs overseas, and I'm one of them. These corporations have not put this money overseas. They want to invest it in America. They want a healthy American economy again. They're not doing it because they're uncertain about some things. We need to figure out what that is and go fix it. So that's the jobs, that's the money. Now, are we sure we got the workers to fill the jobs? That's the third question.
Darn right.
If you got the jobs, if you got the investment, and you got the workers, you're in like Flint, and we're off to the races again. America's back. Right? Here's the most important economic statistic most Americans don't know. I didn't know till last month. Last month, when the unemployment numbers came out, it said we got more private sector jobs, but we lost a bunch of government jobs because the census workers were laid off because we're done. But way down in the report, it said something that took my breath away. It said, for the first time since World War II, as we come out of a recession, job openings, that is, they'll hire you today, job openings are going up twice as fast as new hires. Now, how can that be? We've got 300 or 400 applications for a lot of these jobs. Well, part of the reason is lots of people can't move anymore because their mortgage is worth more than their house. But the biggest reason is that a lot of these jobs don't have people who've been trained to do them where they're open. So we have to do a better job of immediately training people for the jobs that open when they open. Now, if you agree with me, that's the job. And the fourth thing we got to do is do something about the debt and deficit long term. The difference I have with the Republicans on this, besides not really trusting them based on the record here, the biggest difference I have is they say, oh, we need to cut everything now. If you did that, the deficit would get bigger. Why? When you elected me, I needed to cut the deficit right away because the problem was high interest rates. Small businesses were going broke because they couldn't get credit, they couldn't afford to pay the interest rate, they couldn't service their debt. Now, interest rates are virtually zero because we're at risk of deflation in the economy. So if you could cut back on investment in education, or raise revenues, or did anything else to tighten up this economy, the deficit would get bigger, not smaller. That's why the right decision was the bill that President Obama signed to create a bipartisan commission on deficit reduction. The co-chair Erskine Bowles brokered the balanced budget for me as my chief of staff, spent 20 years financing new businesses, and he knows that we have to wait till we have growth back in the economy, and then we have to take steps to go back to a balanced budget. That's the right way to do it. So if you agree with me that we need jobs, financing, and training for people to fill the jobs, and that this bipartisan commission is the way to go, what's that got to do with electing a governor? Well, I'll tell you what. I don't care what they do in Washington. The governor is going to have a big impact on how well Ohio does. So let's look. Let's pretend we're the Ohio State coaching staff and look at the game film. Let's look at the game film. Since Ted Strickland has been governor, Ohio now has the lowest small business taxes in the entire Midwest because you got rid of the franchise tax and you got rid of the tangible personal property tax. If manufacturing jobs are a big target, then his program to revitalize the Ohio economy by specifically recruiting high-tech and other growing manufacturing jobs has already generated 55,000 jobs, and it's better than most other states have. That's a good beginning. If you believe green jobs are a source of the future, you want Ted Strickland to be your governor, because Ohio has been rated in the top 5 states in America by bipartisan analysis in being suited for green jobs for the future and being ahead of the curve. And if you care about jobs, it ought to matter to you that every single year a nonpartisan analysis for all the states, without regard to the party of the governor, is done of their economic development programs. And the winner gets something called the Governor's Cup, the best program in all of America. Guess what? In 2007, 2008, and 2009, Ohio won the Cup, the best economic development program in the entire country. That's what you're being asked to bag. I wouldn't do it if I were you. And we haven't even got to training the workers. One of the problems is there's a big gap between when these openings occur and the training occurs. There's not enough money. Ted Strickland has started a program called Ohio Guarantee, I think. And he's got also a skills bank. It's called Workforce Guarantee. The Workforce Guarantee works like this. If there's an opening and there's not an immediate training program in the area for that job, they give the money to the employer and the employee trains the employee. Nobody in America, in other words, is going to train people to close this skills gap quicker than Ohio. Then they've got a skills bank which breaks it down by region, because this is such a big state, you can't generalize about the economy. I don't believe I'd give that up if I were you. For somebody that says we just ought to cut education and training money and be frugal. That's being penny wise and pound foolish. You better train people for these jobs so you can fill them. They are open now. And in education generally, the last national ranking, Ohio ranked 6th in the country in the overall quality of K through 12 education. I don't believe I'll get rid of that. So let's just review the bidding here. You've got a governor fighting for his life with a brilliant running mate after a record that established Ohio as first in the nation in economic development, first in the Midwest in low taxes on small business, in the top 5 in the nation in likelihood to get the green jobs of the future, with as good a job training program as anybody has got. I don't believe I'd get rid of that if I were you. If evidence counts as much in economics and politics as it does in football, Ted Strickland will win an overwhelming re-election in this year. And all you got to do is go out and talk to your friends and neighbors and give them this information. And tell them it's okay to be angry, but don't be like the guy that substituted the cigars, the dynamite, for his old cigars. Channel your anger to do something constructive. It's not okay to be apathetic, because this election will determine what can be done in Washington in the next 2 years. I will say more about that. And you need to erase your amnesia, not so we can place blame for the past, but so that we can remember what caused this. Now, if you look at these races in Washington, Mary Jo Kilroy's race and these other races, it's really interesting. The Republicans have been really candid in telling us what they're going to do. They say, if you vote for us, we will repeal the financial regulation bill, which makes it much more difficult for us to get in this mix again. In other words, it's okay with them if we go back to ridiculous risk. One of those firms had $34 invested for every dollar in cash they had, with no oversight. I think that's a mistake. They say we want to repeal President Obama's student loan reform, because the banks want us to. I think that's a mistake. It's going to save the taxpayers $60 billion. It's going to save the students more than that in low interest rates. And that money can be put into training people for the future. And most important thing of all, it will allow millions of young people to go and stay in college because it will lower the cost of college loans. And this is even more important. Every single young person who gets a college loan under this program can pay the loan back as a percentage of their income. So no one will ever go broke paying their college loan. No one ever has. And if you get out of college and you want to be a teacher or a police officer or work for the fire department or teach for America or do some other community job, you can do that because your repayment will be limited to a percentage of your loan. Why is this important for the rest of you, old people like me that aren't going to college anymore? Because we fell from 1st to 12th in the world in the percentage of our young adults with college degrees for the first time since World War II in this last decade, because we priced ourselves out. That's another thing, by the way. The last 3 years, college tuition in Ohio has gone up less than any other state in the United States because of Ted Strickland and the Democrats. So they want to repeal it, we want to keep it. Then health care, we want to fix it and they want to repeal it. And I just want to say something about it. They've done a brilliant job performing reverse plastic surgery on this health care bill. And again, I go all over the world. I'm pretty familiar now with every significant health care system